Rick Ross is out here claiming he has no concern about a Drake release. But let's slow down and actually examine that statement. Because the real question is, what exactly does that confidence mean in context? Would Ross genuinely drop on the same day as Drake? Or is the reality more that a Drake release actually benefits Ross, giving him a built-in promotional window to reignite their beef, generate conversation, and ride that wave right into his own album dropping 2 weeks later, plus a mixtape with Max B in French Montana shortly after that? Because that's exactly what appears to be happening. Ross has been piggybacking off of Drake's promotional energy, and when you look at the actual numbers, the pattern becomes clear. The highest-selling project Ross has been associated with in the past several years has Drake's fingerprints on it. His most recent album with Meek Mill, which, to be fair, was a solid project, moved around 31,000 units. For context, Drake's earlier catalog, records like Thank Me Later and Take Care, are still generating somewhere between 15,000 and 30,000 units per week over 16 years later. That's what Ross did in his first week with 2 artists combined. Moving on, Birdman recently found himself in front of a church congregation being questioned about why he puts out music that some believe is harmful to the community. His response was essentially that he doesn't control what artists choose to rap about, and that what sells is what resonates with people. He also turned the question around, pointing out how moral high ground is complicated when you consider how some religious institutions handle their own finances. It's a fair counterpoint, even if it's a deflection. Shane Gillis, the comedian who hosted the Kevin Hart roast, is reportedly set to appear in Drake's upcoming Iceman video dropping this week. Kanye West's team has issued a statement following the Hurricane copyright case verdict. A jury ordered Ye to pay approximately $438,000 in damages over an unreleased demo sample. His camp is calling it a failed shakedown, and looking at the timeline, it's hard to argue otherwise. 6 months ago, the entity bringing the suit was seeking $30 million. They later revised that down to $8 million. The jury ultimately awarded $176,000 in primary damages, plus an additional $85,000 in separate damages. Meanwhile, the opposing side reportedly spent around $5 million in legal fees on top of $1 million paid to the original artist to even bring the case, putting them roughly $5.7 million in the negative after the verdict. The lesson here is that coming at Kanye with an inflated claim expecting a quick settlement does not always go the way people anticipate. Lil TJ is now walking back the Offset situation, explaining that the original dispute was over $10,000, and he wasn't particularly bothered by it, until Offset reportedly made it a point to throw that same amount around in a strip club in front of him. TJ says once it started feeling like a personal slight, things escalated. He's now suggesting they could potentially reconcile. The timing of that softened tone is worth noting, given that federal authorities are reportedly looking into the incident due to it taking place on American Indian land, which triggers federal jurisdiction. There's strong speculation that Future will appear on Drake's Iceman album. That's an interesting dynamic, considering that the We Don't Trust You project, which sparked a lot of the Kendrick versus Drake tension, featured several artists taking shots at Drake, and Future's involvement in that rollout raised eyebrows. The running theory seems to be that Future is distancing himself from Metro Boomin's decisions, given that Metro is connected to XO management. Whether Drake is using a pre-existing record with Future or something newly recorded remains unclear. Cardi B is reportedly back together with NFL wide receiver Stephon Diggs, and she says they're working on things. The situation has a familiar feel to it. On a much more serious note, a murder case involving a 14-year-old victim has been delayed until June 29th, following an evidentiary hearing. The details released by the DA are deeply disturbing. The young girl's remains were found dismembered and severely decomposed inside a Tesla. This story is genuinely difficult to process. Pooh Shiesty was put on the spot in a word association challenge, where he was given the prompt fireplace and proceeded to rap for 2 full minutes without once using the word. Honestly, that's impressive in its own way. DJ Khaled is continuing to push his recent single featuring Future and Lil Baby, but the numbers aren't reflecting the star power. The track is hovering around 5 to 6 million streams, reportedly driven almost entirely by Future's name recognition. Radio isn't picking it up, there's minimal advertising support, and the label push doesn't seem to be moving the needle. Not a good look for anyone involved. OT Genesis has publicly threatened to part ways with his Audemars Piguet collection following AP's partnership with Swatch, saying he has no interest in being associated with that direction. He made it clear he'd rather sell his watches entirely than rock what he views as a diluted brand. From a collector's standpoint, that's a strong statement. Memphis Grizzlies power forward Brandon Clark has passed away at the age of 29. The circumstances are currently being investigated as a possible overdose. The Grizzlies organization has extended their condolences to his family, a tragic and sobering loss. There's a new artist named Trina whose song Coconut Water has been making rounds, and the Nicki Minaj comparisons are impossible to ignore. She doesn't just draw inspiration from Nicki, the sonic resemblance is striking enough that it's raising eyebrows. She's now working with Young Berg, also known as Hitmaka, who has collaborated with Nicki previously. That relationship may get complicated. Adrien Broner is out here claiming he had a past encounter with Rubi Rose, moving right along. And finally, Boosie has been declining interview opportunities, including a reported offer to sit down with Vlad TV for around $25,000 and a separate offer for $15,000 elsewhere. Sean Cotton called him out for leaving money on the table. Boosie's response was that he makes what Vlad pays a year over a single weekend. Now, in fairness, Boosie is doing well. His property is paid off, he's building real estate, he's got his cars. 2 shows and a feature in a weekend could reasonably net him $25,000, and doing that consistently adds up to solid income. But the claim that he's pulling what Vlad pays annually over one weekend is a stretch. The man is comfortable, but let's keep the numbers honest.
You're wrong, bro. I'm not gonna take no losses not fucking with Vlad, bro. You're wrong, bro. You're wrong, bro. That 25,000 5-6 times a year, bro, I make that in a weekend, bro. I made that 6 weekends in a row, bro. I don't need a podcast to be successful, bro. Like, I expect you to take your side because, nigga, you're a podcaster. But I think the real reason is you reached out to me last week trying to get an interview. And I told you no, bro. Like, you gotta take that on the chin, bro. Like, don't go on the thing billing shit about me and how you feel about me. I mean, nigga, if you wanted an interview, you could pay for an interview, nigga. Like, bro, like, I don't need a podcast to be successful, bro. That's what you need to know, bro. Like, you talking this shit about this and that, like, bro. I just made one weekend with motherfucker making 5 years, bro.
And when Boosie talks about making that kind of money over a weekend, he's likely referencing his Boosie Bash event, where he reportedly had artists perform without charging them appearance fees, essentially putting together the show on favorable terms and keeping the majority of the gate for himself. That's actually a smart business move. Produce the event, control the costs, and pocket a clean profit. Realistically, an event like that probably generated somewhere in the range of $100,000 in profit. That's genuinely good money and solid entrepreneurial thinking. But there's a difference between running a smart event once and consistently pulling those kinds of numbers, so let's just keep it real about what the actual figures look like. Anyway, that's going to wrap things up for today. This is Jordan Tower with JT News. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one. And keep your eyes open because Iceman is reportedly dropping tomorrow night, so we'll definitely be breaking that down when it lands.